I will now call the Community Safety Committee meeting to order at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act as amended. For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda to see if members of committee would like to deal with them on consent or hold them for discussion. Items that are not held will be deemed approved by consent with no further discussion. They will then move forward to the next general committee meeting for consideration. We don't have any public meetings, open delegations, presentations by staff, standing items, or deferred items, but we do have reports of advisory committees. There are 3 advisory committee reports to be received. Report 6.1, Report of the Town and Gown Committee, dated May 20th, 2025. That the report of the Town and Gown Committee dated May 20th, 2025 is received. The Town and Gown report dated May 20, 2025 contains 1 recommendation specifically. To the clerk, Ms. Cook, do we receive the general report and then go to the recommendation, or is this just 2 separate steps or 1 step? Just want to clarify.
To you, Chair Morales, it's just 1 step because really you're just advising the members of the Community Safety Committee that the report of the Town and Gown Committee is received. This is similar to what Mayor Nuttall would do with the reference committee reports at General Committee. So then it would just be the recommendation that would be up for consideration. Perfect.
It's a lot different in the big seat, right, Mayor Nuttall? It's easy to be there, be like, so perfect. Okay, for those watching at home, we just want to make sure we get everything right. So the recommendation that came out of Town and Gown is as follows. Licensing framework for additional residential units, bracket ARU, close bracket. It reads as follows. That staff in the Development Services Department investigate how other municipalities have developed licensing framework and bylaws relating to additional residential units, ARUs, and report back to the Town and Gown Committee. Would anybody like to hold this item? Okay, held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. And we're going to keep going, and then we'll go back to the held items. 6.2, report of the Seniors and Accessibility Committee, dated May 26, 2025. That the report of the Seniors and Accessibility Committee, dated May 26, 2025, be received. Any holds on that? None? Okay, that's approved on consent. And 6.3, report of the Parking Ad Hoc Committee meeting dated May 27th, 2025, that the report of the Parking and Ad Hoc Committee dated May 27th, 2025 be received. Any holds on that? None? Okay, that is received on consent. The inaugural meeting of that. And reports to committee 7.1, Grove Street. Somebody's gonna be excited over this. Grove Street East and Johnson Street East, signalization, Ward 1, that the intersection of Grove Street East and Johnson Street be fully signalized. I'm just taking that in, Councilor Rietma. It's been a long journey, and kudos for you to bring it forward. Number 2, the capital project be included in the 2026 budget for the installation of traffic control signals in the amount of $400,000. Number 3, that traffic bylaw 2020-107, Schedule 19, quote, providing for the erection of stop signs at intersections, end quote, be amended by removing the following: Johnson Street and Grove Street East, eastbound, westbound, northbound, and southbound on Johnson Street and Grove Street East. So that is a report to committee as well. Would anybody like to hold that? Nope. Okay, that's approved on consent. There's no items for discussion. So we'll go back to the held report. 6.1, Deputy Mayor Thompson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll also put the motion on the floor as printed. Understanding the recommendation, I know this has been going on, I think since I first got on council, in regards to absentee landlords, extra units and stuff like that. I think it's piecemeal, and I don't believe this achieves anything. So at this time, I think that this needs a lot more work. I don't think this is where we're receiving complaints. Airbnbs, we've had a few, some student rentals, absentee landlords, property standard stuff. And I just don't believe this is achieving what And I understand it's a recommendation from a committee, but at this time and the wording and the intention of it, understanding it, I just don't think it achieves what we need to look at. And we've had reports back of the actual powers, and right now, I just don't believe we have the staff, even if something like this went through. So,
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thompson, any other questions or comments from members of committee? I'll make a quick comment, then I'll open up to non-members of committee. I agree with yourself, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Here's the thing about the wording of this motion. We've had these discussions, and some people's intent is to put enough regulation that maybe it scares people from having more units, whether they be ADUs or on existing structures. And for some people, it's not about that. For some people, it's about safety and insurance compliance with the building code and fire codes and proper things of that nature. For that second one, this doesn't achieve that, because for additional residential units, ARUs, they're mostly newly built. So they would have already had to go through a building permit, an inspection, and fire sign-offs and all those things. So if the intent is to ensure safety, then a licensing framework doesn't achieve that, because ARUs are, again, new units. So, and again, for some people, it may not be that. For some people, it might be just throw everything at additional units and see what sticks, and that's fine. For people who own that and are direct about that, I disagree, but I respect that. But for the people that are concerned about safety, this doesn't do that. I made a lot of statements about any ARUs would have had to have building inspections and fire inspections. I just want to confirm with staff here on the public record, would that be a fair statement to say? I'll start with the fire chief and then move on to the other departments. Would it be fair to say any ARUs that have been built, and I can't give you a timeline, but ARUs are a new thing, let's just say the last 6 years, they would have had to have sign-offs from fire or the appropriate contact. Would that be fair to say, Chief?
Can you please repeat the first part of that?
So any newly built granny suites, ADUs, ARUs, they keep changing the term, would have had to get the appropriate sign-offs from Barrie Fire?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. And building department or designate, would it be fair to say that a building official would have had to sign off before to issue occupancy permits of these units when they were built?
To you, Chair Morales, that would be correct, yes.
Okay. And in addition to that, there's no basements allowed in ARUs, so it's not like somebody could have created an extra basement unit there. So it doesn't achieve the outcomes, Deputy Mayor Thompson. I see a hand from member of committee. I'll go to member of committee first and then quickly to non-members committee. Councilor Corser.
I just wanted to inquire, because we do have two councillors here that sit on that committee. So I really wanted to inquire if maybe they could give a further understanding of what the intent was of this. So maybe there could be, maybe the way it's written isn't, I just want a better understanding of the intent of the motion.
Great point, Councilor Corser. Okay, members on the committee, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Councillor Corser. Yeah, I don't think that it's specifically to do with ARUs. The discussion that we have at Town and Gown, and we have it fairly repeatedly actually, is the whole issue of sort of how students are treated in living arrangements, particularly in the community around the college. Excuse me, the challenges that students have in terms of getting decent accommodation. And of course, then sometimes also the corollary of that is the impact of poor landowners to their impact on the neighbors. So the committee wrestles with this, and they wanted to put forward a motion to see how other municipalities have dealt with that. And that's the result of this. That's where this motion comes from. I agree with the chair. I don't think it's anything to do with the sort of second or third units that get built. It has more to do with sort of general student accommodation. So I don't exactly know how to change the wording, but I think it would be better worded if it was just sort of student accommodation and take out the reference to the ARUs.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Reitma.
Sorry, I thought I still had the floor. My apologies.
That's okay. I'll allow it for this one. You asked a good question, got discussion going. Go ahead, Councillor Corson.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the serious concerns of exploitation of students and their living conditions. I have serious concerns about fire safety, the amount of people living in a home, and the taking advantage of landlords. It's very, very, I believe it's maybe a little more prominent in our community than we realize sometimes. So I would absolutely love to see something that would have some real meat and potatoes to it, that we could kind of flush this out and have a fulsome discussion about these very serious issues, safety issues and concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Yeah, in addition to what Councillor Reitman mentioned about the students, there's a certain amount of frustration, I believe, within our enforcement department, where it's not just absentee landlords, but landlords that are, out of the country. One of the problems they have is they do get a complaint, they go there, and they have absolutely no idea who to charge, So part of this is not necessarily to, regulate it like crazy. It's more just to have something that we actually, as a city and as our enforcement team, actually knows that if it is someone from out of town or out of the country that owns the property, that basically we're just basically looking at having some sort of register where if it is someone from outside the country, then they must designate someone locally who is responsible and can get things fixed, So I think that was a big part of it.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Mayor Nuttall.
Madam Clerk, can you do me a favor? Can you just read the motion out again that came from the committee?
Certainly. That Staff and Development Services Department investigate how other municipalities have developed licensing framework and bylaws relating to additional residential units and report back to the Town and Gown Committee.
So I have, some concern on both sides, which probably sounds like I'm gonna sit on a fence, but I'm gonna try not to do that. When we're asking other municipalities how they're dealing specifically with accessory dwelling units, and then reporting back to a committee that deals specifically with Georgian College, I got a problem with that. I think that it opens up the avenue or the road to come up with multiple systems of regulation where there shouldn't be multiple systems of regulation, and that they always lead to more red tape and more red tape and more red tape, and confusion in the public, both from those who are living in them and those who are trying to do them. So I right off the bat, I don't like that, and I probably wouldn't support that going forward. The second piece to it is that we had a conversation around this table not long ago that was brought forward by, I believe, Councillor Reitma and Councillor Hamilton with regards to the regulation of Airbnbs, or it's not fair to Airbnb, but short-term rentals, I think is what we call them. And I referenced the last time we had this conversation, which was that if you're going to go into regulation, I'm less concerned about the 5 Airbnbs than I am the 1,000 units in the east end of the city. And, we have some pretty heavy investments coming in downtown from post-secondary institutions. And I think that it's no longer, a question of just the east end. I think, quite frankly, it's something we're looking at throughout, although I'm fairly sure we have more than enough housing in downtown to handle that at this point. I think that if there is a move towards regulation, it needs to be well thought out, comprehensive, and not slicing and dicing the different areas of the city or the different types of ancillary units, because it needs to be fair. In fact, I would probably argue that, and obviously you're going to get things back on the other side that this isn't the rule, but I would probably argue that the ADUs, ARUs, whatever we want to call them, in many cases are not the places that we're seeing major problems. If I went into Ward 1, I know that when I was door knocking, I didn't have that brought up to me in Ward 1. I did have, there's a 4-bedroom house that's been turned into an 8-bedroom house that has 16 students, and the garbage isn't dealt with properly, and the grass isn't cut, and there's no respect for the noise bylaws that exist in the city of Barrie. I heard that repeatedly. When I heard about the ARUs, it was actually in Ward 5 on Leacock, and the concern wasn't with the person living in there or the garbage bag at the road or the services. It was like, I just don't want this here. Like I moved into a single family house beside a single family house, and now I've got a single family house and an ancillary unit next door. And that's more of a policy decision that we already made around this table, and was made actually not around this table by the provincial government and the federal government, when they determined that we wouldn't qualify for annual funding for anything unless we did 4s of right. So to me, there's like a bit of confusion around the way the motions come forward, where it's reporting back to. I recognize the issues in Ward 1. We've had the opportunity to speak to some residents in Ward 1 about this. I think that it's incredibly important that we figure it out. And if there is a reduction in students, now is the time to figure it out, right? But that's not what I read in this motion, and that's not where I would want that going back. And if we're going to do it, let's look at it comprehensively and come back with a solid plan for the entire city.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll just make very quick closing comments. I know we have a meeting after this. I could not agree more with what you said, not just at this meeting, but at that previous one that you referenced. Here's something else that I think might be a good opportunity. And it's unfair for me to direct the councillors on the town and gown, but just putting it out there. If they want to have a wholesome discussion about the student overcrowding issue, I understand that there's landlords who don't care and will throw up drywall in living rooms and take a 4-bedroom house turn into an 8-bedroom. I get that. But that's on the supply end. You also have to address it on the demand end. And the elephant in the room, I've said this before publicly, shouldn't be that much of an elephant in the room, is some students want that. I've talked to them. And I've said, why do you live 4 to a bedroom, 5 to a bedroom, multiple mattresses? And they say, our parents back home, usually international students, but not limited to, our parents know roughly how much housing costs, because they look at the website at Georgian, and they give us this money. And they say, that's for your housing. They don't get more. So instead of paying $900, I think back then, that conversation I had was in the 800s, instead of paying $850, $900 a month for a bedroom, they'd rather split a room and each pay $200, $250, and then take that money and buy or lease a car. And I asked them, why do you want to buy or lease a car? And they say, it's an important status symbol for us. So I think a conversation, if the town and gown committee, and that doesn't apply to everybody, okay? But I think an important conversation for them to have is, and I've mentioned it before, maybe it's worth mentioning again to the college because I know they're doing a lot of hard work, is should there be a mandatory immersion course for international students? I don't care what country they come from. Hey, this is Canada, this is how you do things, this is fire code, these are your resources for property bylaws you don't get taken advantage of, short-term loans, things of that nature. And also, did you know that it's not a good thing for you to live that crowded? Did you know that we encourage you to have better options? And that course can be mandatory. I've been in post-secondary, there are mandatory communication or even welcome to courses. And I know at the university level, there is not just guaranteed first-year housing, which is getting harder, but at least 8 years ago, 9 years ago, there's mandatory first-year on-campus living. Don't ask me about the legality of how do you mandate someone live on campus first year. There's probably some sort of student conduct as thing, but that is also an opportunity because if, again, this is probably coming from domestic students as well, but they definitely don't put up with living 4 or 5 to a bedroom as much. So I just wanted, on the demand issue, that also needs to be addressed. Not to say the supply issue, meaning greedy landlords who don't care, is not an issue, but if this keeps happening and getting worse, Mayor Nuttall, clearly them putting up with it is something that happens. There's clearly a demand there. So something needs to be addressed, and I'm just putting that out there. Any other quick comments from members or non-members of the committee? Councilor Corson.
I understand what you're saying, Chair. I just have serious misgivings about educating students who might feel that they do not have a choice, as opposed to ensuring that people that are profiting off of exploitation of the students be held accountable, or at least investigated, or at least like the fire and inspection having more teeth to do something about it. And I don't know if that falls under provincial legislation or if that is something that we could do municipally, but sure, we can educate students, but I just don't know how far that's going to go when student housing has been an issue. I know that there has been cut back on international students, but again, I see these issues in my own ward, and that's Ward 4, and it's not near the college, but there is students living, like, you can tell because a truck will pull up into a driveway with like unloading doors and drywall into a house. You know what's going on, and our inspectors just don't have the kind of with the regulations about the right to have 24-hour notice, and they play these little shell games that make it very difficult for inspectors and fire department to come in and actually do an inspection for the safety and amount of people that are in square space. So this may not be, this motion, this item might not have the teeth, all the information that it needs, but I would really like to see something come back to council that actually puts, like I said, meat on the bones, more information and more exacting about wider spread information or investigative motions put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Corser. I'm going to hold myself out of order. Oh, I saw a hand. Did I see a hand from Mayor Nutt as well, or no? Just quickly, I'm going to hold myself out of order for pushing us down a rabbit hole of content that's not as part of the motion. To quickly clarify, Councilor Corser, I didn't say instead of enforcement on landlords that are doing this. My comment was in addition to. I was very clear about addressing the supply, which everybody stated, but also the demand side. So I just want to clarify it wasn't instead of. Mayor Nutt.
Yeah, I just wanted to, look, we got to stay around the topic at hand, right? And there's always more that can be done on a whole bunch of different levels. The topic at hand is the regulation of ARUs, ADUs. I'm going to give the same recommendation, and if it's okay, Councilor Morales, if I can speak of a confidential conversation you and I had yesterday, where you had suggested that you wanted to deal with something about a different issue, but kind of connected to one of the general committee items tonight. My recommendation would be this. If we want to take a fulsome look at this, because, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, I'm not going to support something until it's a fulsome look. Then let's get together an item for discussion. Let's go through the executive committee where you would get this exact feedback. Let's, work with our public servants who will have a lot to say about this, because they have in the past, and try to shape something out properly going forward. I don't think we're going to do that on the floor here tonight with what we have before us. And it's not to complain about the town of Gown. It's just not going to work out this way.
Agreed, Councilor Harvey, if you still want the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Morales. And my sentiments are exactly that and very aligned. And just like to remind committee that we've had a very lengthy discussion last term about this. We've already had a lengthy discussion about this once this term. And as a result, we ended up actually increasing our budget to hire more bylaw officers. And I think we still are in that phase where they're to do proactive enforcement, not only in the north end, but citywide. And I think we're still in that phase where we're probably still allowing them to do their job. And again, I know Madam Clerk's nodding her head, but I don't know if we're going to see a report back with some of the outcomes or whatever, but this is something that's been talked about so many times. We've made a decision not that long ago, and I think now it's coming back before bylaws had the ability to really do a fulsome look at that. I don't know if Madam Clerk wanted to add anything to that?
Through Chair Morales to Councillor Harvey. Actually, we presented a memo to Council, I think it was earlier this year, late last year, on some of the results of our proactive enforcement. We committed to 25% proactive enforcement, and we actually achieved over 28% proactive enforcement across the city.
Thank you, Chair Harvey. Seeing no more comments, if I could, I'm going to hold the vote. So the motion as, does everybody on committee have the motion in front of them? Should I read it again? No? Everybody sees it? Okay. The motion as printed, not as discussed. All those in favor of approving that, please indicate. None? That fails? Okay. And we don't have any other reports that were held. No items for discussions, so we are adjourned at 5:16 p.m.
Madam Clerk, would you like me to direct everyone to Robert Barrie? If council could go to, general committee could go to Sir Robert Barrie for a confidential meeting? Thank you.